Unmuted.
This meeting of the City of Socorro Planning and Zoning Commission is set to begin. First and foremost, the City of Socorro would like to thank everyone and ask for your patience during this difficult time we have been presented with. Everyone, please remember to silence any electronics to avoid sound interruption. No disruptive behavior or outbursts will be tolerated, and violators are subject to call disconnection and possible prosecution. In accordance with Section 418.016 of the Texas Government Code and by order of the Office of the Governor, issued March 16, 2020, the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Socorro will broadcast the meeting scheduled today, Tuesday, October 6, 2020, at 5:45 from City Council chambers located at 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, via live stream in order to advance the public health goal and practice social distancing to slow the spread of the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. The public that signed up and any presenters will be called upon by the presiding officer during the meeting to speak, during public comment, or their agenda item during the meeting following Government Code 551.042. La reunión de la Comisión de Planificación y Zonificación de la Ciudad de Socorro está por empezar. Primeramente, queremos darle las gracias y pedimos su paciencia durante estos momentos críticos que enfrentamos. Favor de poner en silencio todo equipo electrónico para evitar interrupción de sonido. No se va a tolerar ningún tipo de comportamiento perjudicial o revoltoso. A quien no siga estas reglas, su llamada será desconectada y puede ser infraccionado. De acuerdo con sección 418.016 del Código del Gobierno de Texas y por orden de la Oficina del Gobernador, anunciada el 16 de marzo del 2020, la Comisión de Planificación y Zonificación de la Ciudad de Socorro transmitirá su reunión hoy martes 6 de octubre del 2020 a las 5:45 de la tarde desde la Sala de Concilio, ubicadas en 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, por medio de conferencia telefónica y será transmitida en vivo para avanzar en el objetivo de salud pública y practicar el distanciamiento social. Para tomar medidas preventivas para prevenir la propagación del coronavirus, conocida como COVID-19, a los demás y por la seguridad del público. El público y los presentadores serán anunciados por el oficial conduciendo la reunión para poder hablar durante la sección de comentario público o después de la discusión del artículo de la agenda por cual se apuntaron, siguiendo las reglas del gobierno 551.042.
This is the Socorro Planning and Zoning Commission, October 6, 5:49 p.m. We call this meeting to order.
Item number 2, establishment of quorum. Ernest Gomez,
Here.
David Estrada,
Here.
Arturo Lafuente is absent. Andrew Arroyos,
Here.
Enrique Cisneros.
Present.
We have quorum with 4 commissioners present. Item number 3, notice to the public, open forum. Diana, do we have anybody that would like to speak?
We have speakers for their agenda items.
Item number 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve made by David Estrada, second by Andrew Arroyos. I'd like to take a vote. Ernest Gomez,
Yes.
David Estrada,
Yes.
Arturo Lafuente is absent. Andrew Arroyos
Yes, ma'am.
and Enrique Cisneros.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carried with 4 commissioners. Approved. Item number 5, consider and take action on the proposed amendment to several sections of the Muni Code to allow the setbacks required for accessory structures to be reduced to 5 feet.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Joe Terraza with the Planning and Zoning Department. What we're presenting tonight is just a draft of some of the changes that we're proposing, and I'm gonna put them on the screen here real quick so I can explain in detail. You should have it in your backup. I'm gonna, so the reason we're bringing this, let me just make it bigger so you can see it better. Okay, so this is part of the Socorro's Muni Code. What it is, as you can see, it has several sections that regulate the setbacks that are required for accessory buildings. Well, the way you see it right here, everything that you see in red, we're proposing to delete all these sections, and everything that you see in blue, we need to, this is what we're proposing. For example, on the first section right here, the purpose of this is to reduce the required setbacks for accessory buildings, for example, for storages. All these provisions that you have on the screen have been affecting several residents, especially the ones who live in the R3s and R2 properties. They don't have any rear properties. And when we ask them for a 10-foot setback, well, that takes away the rest of their yard, the backyard. So by reducing the setback to 5 feet, accessory buildings can get closer to the property line. We don't recommend that they get any closer than 5 feet. And the reason for that is because according to the International Residential Code, if you get closer than 5 feet, then you start looking at different ways of construction. For example, the walls would have to be fire rated and all that kind of stuff. So by reducing the setback to 5 feet, that's gonna benefit a lot of residents who are limited in the rear property. And the way the code is written is not something that helps a lot of residents. Like I said, the R2s and the R3s are the most affected ones. Currently, the R3 is not in the Muni Code. So what we're using to regulate the separation from the property line is Ordinance 76, Amendment 1A, Section 8. And the same thing, it has the same language. It says that all accessory buildings have to be 10 feet from the property line. The same thing with mobile home parks, mobile home subdivisions. And then we're proposing also, and the reason we're bringing this up is because these are some of the most problematic things that have been happening, especially with code enforcement. When people are detected in violation of these provisions, it's really hard for some of them to comply. It's really hard to enforce this language as shown. So on patios and porches, we would like to remove this language from the code. The reason for that is because we want to present at a later date or on another meeting regulations for shade structures. So by having this language right here, our interpretation is that we can allow shade structures or porches to go all the way to the property line. And by doing that, that creates a problem for the neighbors because stormwater or rainwater is raining into the neighbors' properties. So we're putting something together that we're gonna present to you later, but in the meantime, we would like to take it off of this. And it's the same thing for the several sections that were discussed. And then on the second page, and then also to let you know, we did send all this information to the attorneys. They're gonna prepare it in an ordinance format before we present it to council. We're just bringing this draft to you to get additional recommendations or suggestions so that we can present to council all together. Section A on the blue text, this is something that has been a problem for code enforcement because another section that says that when there's an accessory building that is 200 square feet or less, no permit is required. So we have identified that people take advantage of that provision and they start building several accessory buildings, more than one, because they don't really need a permit for buildings that are less than 200 square feet. So by putting this, it'll regulate the amount of open space that is required depending on the zoning. And we have more room to contain stormwater within private properties. On section B, this is also another problem area that we have identified through the building inspections and code enforcement. So there's been occasions where people want to build a storage room with the intention of building a principal structure. It should be the other way around. According to the ordinance, the way it's written, the principal structure should be erected first, and then the storage becomes an accessory to the main building. So what happens here is when people build an accessory storage, they never build a principal structure, or they take too long, and before you know it, it becomes a business or some other use that is not allowed. On section C, this is something that we identify as a problem in residential zones. We want to make it clear that this is only for residential zones, just because in order to maintain the architectural nature of a residential zone, shipping containers should only be allowed in commercial properties or industrial zones. We got to be careful with this one. We had additional language here that would allow shipping containers to be built as long as they're engineered in commercial properties. But for the purpose of this amendment, we're only bringing it up for residential zones only. And then the last portion here, we ran into situations where there's no language in the code that restricts where accessory buildings are supposed to be built. So there's been occasions where a resident will build an accessory building in the front of the property, and then that becomes an issue for traffic visibility. For that reason, we're asking to restrict accessory buildings or storage rooms to be limited to the rear or the side of the principal structure. I don't know if you have any questions about these changes that we're asking, or if you have any suggestions or comments.
Commissioners, there is a caller on the line who would like to speak on the item.
Miriam?
Ms. Cruz?
Hello? Yes? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to thank the planning and zoning and Joe for bringing this, because I thought this was pretty cool. Step forward to amending more of the ordinances, and I appreciate it. And it's true that it is an issue for a lot of people. And so I commend you for bringing it. I only had one question, Joe. I was wondering, I think I read somewhere towards the bottom of the backup that it's going to be limited to one accessory building per lot, or per, per lot. And I was just wondering if there is a way to maybe modify so that larger lots can actually have two, because I'm imagining bigger lots that may actually need that second storage unit. I can see how the smaller homes, like you said, the R3s, they barely have a backyard, they barely have space. So I can see why they should be limited to one. But I guess I just have a question. Is that something that's proposed for the ordinance, or is that something additional for later to look at? Because I can't imagine some R1s, especially some really, really big R1s out there that really may need, and probably already have, 2 accessory buildings. That was my only comment. Thank you.
Is
Those
there
were all
anybody
the,
else?
I apologize. Those were all the speakers.
I agree with Miriam. Larger lots, R1, there's lots out there, 15,000, 20,000 square feet. There's 1 acre lots where if it's limited to just one structure, it's not enough. I mean, I can think of multiple reasons why you would need more than one structure, especially on 1 acre lots. I think a 10,000 acre lot could accommodate maybe 2 even. So I think it needs to be worded, or I would, I would recommend that larger lots be allowed more than 1.
I agree with Mr. Estrada also. I think that properties, some of them that are half acres or 1 acre lots, maybe we can look into that a little bit more just on that section.
So commissioners, the reason for that, I can just tell you some of the things that we have noticed when we're out there in the field looking and making inspections. So the reason behind that is because we noticed that so on the R1s, especially the R1s, those are the only properties that have very large lots. The reason for that is keep in mind, they're supposed to have on-site ponding. So if you allow more accessory buildings, well, that's going to be encroaching into the required area. It's really hard for us to know exactly how much area is required for stormwater collection. One of the things that we have noticed is when some of the people start building more than 1 accessory structure, very often they become a second dwelling. And that's the reason why you have seen a spike in lot splits or zoning changes, especially lot splits. When there's more than 1 structure, it becomes a second dwelling, and then now people are required to subdivide in order to be in compliance. That's another reason why we're asking for these changes. And of course, these are only recommendations. And the other reason we bring this up is because there's been a number of cases that we have taken to the Board of Adjustments asking for variances to these sections. So in the meantime, I guess it's just a matter of trying it and see if this is something that'll work. And like the attorney mentioned earlier, we can always come back and amendment if it becomes an issue. So I don't know if you have any other questions.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Ernie. May I speak?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr.
Hello?
Gomez. Go ahead, Mr. Gomez.
Yeah, what is this? Yeah, this is Gomez. May I speak?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is this for existing lots that you have now that already have a couple of buildings, or is this for future lots? What is this ordinance for? And if we do make this ordinance, how are you going to go back and enforce something that's already been there for years and years?
No, Mr. Gomez, to answer your question, this is only for new construction. So when somebody comes,
Okay.
when somebody requests a permit.
No, that's fine. I was just concerned about the existing big lots that we have here in the city of Socorro.
No,
And some of the smaller lots do have some buildings, and I understand that. But if this ordinance here is for the future, well then, okay, that's fine. That you answered my question.
Yes, the existing buildings become grandfathered the moment this ordinance is amended. We can no longer go back and ask them to remove or move the structures. It only applies to new permits.
Good. Excellent.
Oh, so how would you handle a large parcel, like let's say, I don't know, 20,000, half an acre or an acre, and different people are going to want to come and build different structures on there. So for example, a detached garage, a horse barn, a hay barn, a tool shed. A lot of people move to Socorro for that reason. They want to be able to have multiple structures. So I think there needs to be something written in here where that can be handled. One structure on a large lot is not enough. It's not enough space to handle everything that's needed to maintain a large lot. Maybe something can be done where if it's 10,000 square feet or less, it's only one, but anything larger, or maybe draw the line at half an acre. Structures are allowed at half an acre or more. Maybe even an acre, but large lots, people move out here to have multiple structures.
Yes, and that's something that, like I said, we have to look into on a case by case. And I don't know, I have a question for the attorney. I don't know if I can show an example of a property where we ran into a situation that was presented to the Board of Adjustments at one point. Just to show an example, can I show like a property?
Yeah, I think as long as you don't have any maybe personal information about the person, or this is one that was approved or denied.
Okay, so I'm gonna just show you, this is just one property that, and even the owner of the property agrees that the architectural design of the building is really ruining the residential district. So what you see here, this property, let me turn on the, okay. As you can see, there's two buildings in this property. The one that you see with the white roof is a storage building. And the way the ordinance is written today, as long as this is not bigger than the main dwelling, it should be allowed. That's the reason why we are proposing the amendment to the 50% of the main dwelling to avoid having these bodega type of buildings in residential zones. When this resident came in, he's a very nice person. He came in and he told the Planning and Zoning Department that he regrets buying that building just because it's so massive and it impedes the view of traffic. So if you look at the area that he has right here, there's really no room for on-site ponding and to have his parking space. The area is very limited, and this is an R1. So that's the reason why we gotta look at case by case. So with the language that we're showing, or we're proposing to amend, is to avoid these problems in the future.
Mr. Terrazas, how big is that lot?
This lot is, it's about a quarter of an acre, about 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
Can you repeat that?
It's
Did
about,
you say 20,000 square feet?
about 20,000 square feet, más o menos.
That's about a half acre.
Yes, sir.
it looks like a smaller lot. It looks
Yeah.
like a 10,000 square foot lot. But I see your point. I see what you're saying.
Yes, and it's not the first time that we see those kind of buildings, and that's why we decide to recommend to you a change on the language.
I think we can all agree that with R2s and R3s, we don't have an issue with that. And I think that if we had more clarification on bigger lots where, you know, I am in total agreement with Mr. Terrazas that, with David, that, you know, people do want to move over to these bigger lots and be able to have the ability to build, to have more buildings on there. But again, I completely see where Mr. Terrazas is coming from. Do you guys have any other proposal or anything else that we can look at where it says, hey, for every acre, we'll allow you to do a second or third building? Anything else that we can kind of compare that to?
I'm sorry, was that question for me?
Sure.
So there's, like I said, there's other properties where we have seen this happen, where they're taking up most of the space. There's another one, I just don't remember the address, where they have this building that is very large, and they came in to apply for a permit for a storage room. Well, the storage is almost as big as the main dwelling, very similar to the one you just saw. I just don't remember. I don't remember the address. I don't want to. And then besides, if I put it on the screen, chances are you're not going to be able to see the new construction because this is just recent. But if you looked at the plans, you can just tell that there is absolutely no room for on-site ponding on that lot. So we've seen it a number of times. And there's also the other situation that we have where there's several subdivisions in the city that don't have a public sewer. So when there's no sewer available, well, you gotta have a septic tank. And I'm just showing a random property. So if you put a septic tank here, then you have the drain lines that extend to the back. And this building, whatever they put in the back of the property, is built on top of the drain lines. That's another issue that we identify. That's the reason why they're required to have the open space to allow the water to evaporate. This is something that is stated on some of the older subdivision plats where there were no public sewers available, especially on Friedman Estates. All these homes that you see here were required to leave a certain amount of open space. And as you can see, there is no open space in the back for the sewer lines, for the septic tanks. So those are just some of the problems that we identified. But we are conscious that we would like to make it fair for people who want to build closer to the property line, and at the same time avoid having buildings that are all the way to the limit. And the reason for that is because storage rooms, we don't know what's going to be stored. People use it to store maybe flammable materials, gasoline, stuff like that, that might become a fire hazard. So a storage room should always be separated by at least the minimum distance that's required by the residential code. That's the reason why we're recommending the 5 feet.
Mr. Terrazas, and this is just, this would only apply to storage areas?
Yes.
Would patio, like little, patio decks or little, covered patios,
Only,
Would
only
they-
for storage rooms.
would that be considered in there? Only for storage units?
Yes. Also, an accessory building would be like a detached garage. They can be very close without, abutting the property line itself. But an accessory building would be something that is not connected to the main dwelling. So it only applies for accessory buildings, not for the home, not for the main structure.
Can you do a measurement on one of these lots, like the side to side and the depth, so we can get an idea of what size these lots are?
The lot that you see here is 200, more or less 215 feet from front to back by 100 feet wide.
So it's half an acre, it's about 21,500.
Yes, sir.
A little bit more than a half acre.
Yeah,
And like I said, most of the problems are happening on the smaller lots. For example, these, you can see they don't have a lot of backyard. So it wouldn't be, it's not fair, and it's really hard to enforce or ask them to stay 10 feet away from the rear property line. It's really hard. See, like this one right here, that has more than 10 feet from the rear. And you can see it's almost all the way to the main dwelling. There's other occasions where they don't have any yard at all, especially R3s. They have a very small backyard, as you can see here in the back. If they want to ask for a permit to build an accessory storage, well, there's no room. They wouldn't be allowed to build anything at all. And they've been, like I said, there's been cases, especially on Cielo del Rio subdivision, where they've been to the Board of Adjustments asking for a variance to get closer to the rear. And they have been denied by the board. And the board recommended that we bring this amendment to you to see if we can amend the language and make it uniform and fair to everybody. So as you can see, these are R3s. Some of them have a lot of room in the back, but most of them, they don't have a backyard. See, like this one here. There's a lot of examples, and it's been an issue for many people. So I don't know if you have any other questions. Or if you want to make any other suggestions other than look into the R1s.
I'm okay with the setbacks and with actually everything, just with what Mr. Estrada was talking about, maybe looking into, like the half acres and above or whatnot, and maybe going a little bit into, them being able to build, I guess, maximum of 2 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with that. I mean, I don't think anybody has an issue with this. It doesn't sound like anybody has an issue with the setback, especially with the smaller property lines. I think, like Mr. Estrada said, that, I think our ones that have bigger properties, that's why they bought those properties, to be able to do more on them. So so if we approve this, Mr. Terrazas, then this is, one, we'll be taking out this language, and adding the setbacks and adding that second row where it says 50%, the accessory structure rule, and that's per structure, right? It doesn't mean a collective of, hey, it's a patio, hey, it's a porch, and it's individually, they cannot be more than 50% of the main structure, or is it collective?
No, you're correct. It's only for the main structure, for the principal structure.
So,
It does-
so let's, I mean, just to make it easy, let's say it's a 2,000 square foot house, and they build 1,000 feet square foot storage, and then they add a 250 square foot patio. That's what I mean. Will they be able to do that? Because again, individually, they're still less than 50% of the structure.
We only count the square footage from the principal structure, not including porches or other accessories that might be installed. Like I said, there's another provision that allows porches or shade structures to go all the way to the property line. That's the reason why we don't include that as the square feet. Only the main dwelling, or you can say the livable area, including the
Okay.
garage.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
On this one, do we take action today and vote on it? Or is this something that we
Yes.
that we need to start looking at?
Yes, you can vote on it with the recommendations of everything that you just mentioned, because we already took notes of everything you're recommending. That way we can present it to council in the form of an ordinance. And whatever council decides, we'll adjust everything accordingly. But like I said, this document is already in the office of the city attorneys for review. And then once we have the final document, we'll present it to council.
So if nobody has questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve with commissioner's recommendations.
Do I have a second?
Can we add the recommendation to that? Can I add a recommendation to that motion?
Yes, you can make an amendment to that motion if you want to.
Okay, on that, I'm gonna say, that motion to approve, with a recommendation that, 1 acre lots be allowed up to a maximum of 5 structures. I think Mr. Cisneros mentioned 2. I think that's still a small amount, or it's low. I could think of multiple reasons why 5 would be necessary on a 1 acre lot. So I would ask that would be the recommendation, of 1 acre up to 5.
And Mr. Terrazas, just as a point of clarification, even if there is 5 different structures, they still have to meet, the requirements of ponding,
Yes.
allowing for right of way to see the street.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you can bring it back in the event that you guys do have a lot of issues with that in mind, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, and the reason we're bringing, like I mentioned earlier, we're bringing this is because it is a problem for code enforcement to go out there and try to enforce the ordinance as it's spelled today. And it is a problem for the residents to try to comply with what we're asking for. That's the reason why we're asking for these amendments.
And again, this is just for new construction because
Yes. Yes, sir.
everything that's already here is going to be grandfathered, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
If there's not I guess Mr. Arroyo made the motion, Mr. Estrada is doing the second.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
I have a motion to approve with Commissioner recommendations by Andrew Arroyo, second by David Estrada. I'd like to take a vote. Ernest Gomez,
Yes.
David Estrada,
Yes.
Arturo Lafuente is absent. Andrew Arroyos, is Andrew Arroyos,
Yes, ma'am.
and Enrique Cisneros.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm, Motion carried with 4 commissioners approved. Item number 6, consider and take action on the final plat approval for Waco Junction Unit 1, being a portion of tracks 12A, 12C, Block 5, Socorro Grant, and a replat of Lot 1, Block 2, East Lake Valley subdivision located at the intersection of Old Waco Tanks Road and Nuevo Waco Tanks Boulevard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the presentation of the final plat for Hueco Junction. Let me put it on the screen here real quick. This is the final plat. Around this subdivision, everything has already been 100% developed. The streets are installed, the curbs, gutters, everything is there. So this is just a replat of a couple of properties. These will be commercial lots. This is at the intersection of the Nuevo Hueco Tanks Road and Old Hueco Tanks Road. And on the other side, they have Hueco Junction. I'm gonna put the aerial map so you can see it better. It's this area that is outlined. And they will be creating 3 lots. And I don't know if you have any questions about this property. There's currently homes under construction around this. You don't see this anymore. There's a lot of homes. And like I said, the streets are built. So this is a lot more advanced than you see here. This aerial image is obviously old, but the streets are already installed and there's connection to Nuevo Hueco Tanks. There is access to the little space between the raised median. And they're proposing to plat it to have a commercial venture. I'll put the final plat again on the screen so you can look at it. And it matches the preliminary plat that was already approved. This is only the final plat. I don't know if you have any questions about this one. And also,
I don't have any questions either.
Also, Mr. Jorge Azcarate, the applicant, is on the line to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Cruz would also like to comment on this item. Ms. Cruz?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I had one comment and actually I have 2 questions. I was wondering, Job, if you could educate us or me about why, when they indicate that there's going to be both underground and above ground electricity and all that stuff, why is it both, or why don't we make them 2? And if you could answer me if the city is looking to move towards requiring that new development just require underground, everything underground, because it makes the city look cleaner and it's probably a little safer. And then my second comment is in regards to, because it is commercial and it's going to be obviously really, really close to a lot of new residential, but actually also some old residential, also the church that's next there. Is there going to be any restrictions as far as noise, or what type of activities are going to be on commercial? Only because there obviously has been issues in Horizon and in other parts of like the city of El Paso where there are strips like that of commercial, and the neighbors that live either right behind that area or somewhere close by, or there's a lot of complaints about noise or people, walking through their property because they're drunk or like throwing up or stuff like that. And so I was just wondering if there's going to be any restrictions about that thing.
There's no other speakers? Okay. So I don't know if you, the commissioners, have any other questions about the final plat. Just to address some of the concerns from the residents, this property is already zoned for commercial use. In order to minimize the impact to the residential zone, there will be a solid rock wall separating the residential zone from the commercial. The intent is to have a commercial business. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We don't have that information. We just know that it's going to be used for commercial. Across the street, there's going to be the industrial and commercial zones where the warehousing for Amazon will be located. So I don't know, maybe this might be a good place for a gas station or something, but we don't know who's the owner or who's going to be buying this property because we haven't seen the plans yet. This is, like I said, only the approval for the final plat, so they can go ahead and record the document as it is. And the developer who owns the land at the moment will eventually dedicate some additional right-of-way on old Hueco tanks via meets and bounds. And then this will be all developed for commercial use. It might be a shopping center, it might be a gas station. We don't know. We don't have all that information available because obviously the land hasn't been sold yet. It's just the zoning has been approved some time back, and all the properties that you see along Nuevo Hueco Tanks Road will be commercial, including the ones across the street. So we don't foresee an impact to the residential area just because there's going to be a wall separating it.
Nobody else has any other questions? I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Cisneros, did you make a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second that motion.
Okay.
I have a motion to approve made by Andrew Arroyo, second by Enrique Cisneros, and I'd like to take a vote. Ernest Gomez,
Yes.
David Estrada,
Yes.
Arturo Lafuente is absent. Andrew Arroyos,
Yes, ma'am.
Enrique Cisneros.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion is carried with 4 commissioners.
Thank you.
Item number 7, Planning and Zoning Commissioners Report.
Nothing to report.
I don't have anything to report.
Item number 8, Planning and Zoning Department Report.
So the only thing that we have to report today is that, just to let you know, we're working with other agencies. With the Lower Valley Water District, we're working on trying to clarify the process or the way water rights are relinquished when a new subdivision is turned in. We still haven't come up with a solution to some of the problems that we have faced, but we are negotiating with the Lower Valley Water District, and then we will have monthly meetings to talk about the water rights on certain properties. And the other thing is we're working with El Paso County and the city of El Paso and other municipalities to come together and put some of the subdivision standards or some of the subdivision requirements when there's a new subdivision or properties that are going to be developed in the county. So that would only apply to regulations outside the city limit. We are getting a lot more applications for subdivisions and lot splits. And some of them, you will see them in the next meeting. You will see that some of those applications are outside the city limit. So the county is preparing a document to regulate the development that is in the unincorporated areas. And that's the only thing I have to report.
Item number 9, excuse absent commission members.
Motion to excuse.
Second.
I have a motion to excuse made by and Ernest Gomez, second by Andrew Arroyos. And I'd like to take a vote. Ernest Gomez,
Yes.
David Estrada,
Yes.
Arturo Lafuente is absent, Andrew Arroyos,
Yes, ma'am.
and Enrique Cisneros.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion is carried with 4 commissioners. Item number 10, adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion to adjourn made by Andrew Arroyo, second by Enrique Cisneros. I'd like to take a vote. Ernest Gomez,
Yes.
David Estrada,
Yes.
Arturo Lafuente is absent, Andrew Arroyos,
Yes, ma'am.
Enrique Cisneros.
Yes, ma'am.
Meeting is adjourned with 4 commissioners at 6:37 p.m.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good night.
Aye.